Welcome back. I'm Ryan from Blue Water Gaming, and we are back here with another commander deck. This time, we're taking a look at Uril the Miststalker. He is a Naya commander, and pretty much I chose this guy because back when I started playing Commander a few years ago, Uril was the boogeyman of the format. You really didn't want to play against an Uril deck because he was pretty terrible to play against. Yeah, he's kind of fallen out of favor. You don't really see him that often anymore, but yeah, we're playing this Ultron commander this time. Now, just one note before we get into this. This deck list will change slightly. It'll change very slightly. This was built on a budget of 10 tickets, and well, the deck kind of suffers a little bit for that. Because of some of the actual monetary cost of some of the cards in this deck, that makes it so that we kind of lost a little bit in the lands, and that's actually where the deck is going to be changing. I'm going to be spending another ticket or two to be adding in some more dual lands, because as you can see right now, we have 3 dual lands, and they're just the check lands. Although technically we do have Commander Tower, which taps for all colors, and then we also have Evolving Wilds and Terramorphic Expanse, which can get any type of land, but this deck needs more dual lands, and the deck list will be in the description, and it will be the updated deck list, so if you check that, then that will be changed. But yeah, let's just get into this real quick. So we have the basics: 10 plains, 7 mountains, 7 forests, 8 forests actually. Like I said, those are changing. These numbers are going to go down. We're going to have more dual lands, and maybe even some tri-lands in there. For actual dual lands, we have the check lands. I believe that some of these were in Innistrad, some of them were in M13, I believe. But yes, the red-white one, the red-green one, and the green-white one. Now, those just help a little bit. They're definitely not enough. Like I keep saying, this deck needs more dual lands. So on to actual utility lands. We have Kessig Wolfrun, because in this deck we are only trying to do 21 commander damage. That's the main way to win. It doesn't matter if they gain infinite life or if they have less life than that. We are just trying to do 21 commander damage. And Kessig Wolfrun gives him trample, and it allows us to dump all of our excess mana, which we can occasionally have like 8 excess mana or so, and we can dump it all into Kessig Wolfrun and make him really big. The next one is Reliquary Tower, because well, blue decks are a thing and group hug decks are a thing, so we don't want to have to discard these extra cards. So yeah, Reliquary Tower is a must. Then next we have Shinka, the Blood-Soaked Keep. This gives Uril first strike, which yeah, he's pretty much going to win every fight that he has in the game, because pretty much nothing's going to be bigger than Uril. Even like World Spine Worm, which is a 15/15, can even get outclassed by Uril most of the time. Then the final 2 lands that we have are Slayer Stronghold, which gives him Vigilance and +2/+0, but the main thing's Vigilance. It also gives him Haste, but we are normally casting Uril on turn 4 or 5, so we don't have the excess mana to give him Haste. And finally, we have Sunhome, Fortress of the Legion. This is the most powerful of the utility lands. For 4 mana and tapping Sunhome, so technically 5, we can give Uril double strike. Now, giving him just 2 auras will normally make a double striking Uril a one-shot kill. So definitely love that. And then we always have the obligatory Temple of the False God, because we're going to be casting some pretty high costing spells, and having soul lands really kind of helps. So let's get out of the lands and actually come down here to our 1-drops. Now we don't have a whole lot of 1-drops. We do actually have quite a bit of mana ramp in the deck. Having changing around the lands, it's not normally a problem to get the lands. That is occasionally a problem because the deck only runs 34 lands, I believe. Pretty low number. Yeah, we normally don't run into a problem of not having enough lands. It's the different types of lands. So we do have some more mana ramp. Soul Ring, because that should be in every commander deck. Then we have pretty much our mana dorks. Arbor Elf, which untaps target forest. Avacyn's Pilgrim, which gives us a white mana. Elvish Mystic, which gives us a green, and then 2 more Elvish Mystics. We also have 1 Wild Growth to finish off our mana ramp at 1. Then we do have 3 small enchantments at 1. We have Rancor, which is there mostly for the trample, and it's really hard to get rid of Rancor. Then Hyena Umbra, which is mostly there for First Strike and Totem Arbor. Although, granted, Rancor, due to Url's ability to give to get +2/+2 for each aura attached to it, Rancor gives him +4/+2. Hyena Umbra gives him +3/+3. Ethereal Armor just gets crazy on Url, giving him +3/+3 just for having Ethereal Armor, and then an added +1/+1 for each other enchantment that we control. And it is important that it says enchantment and not just aura, because we do have some enchantments in the deck. Our removal is based around enchantments, and pretty much most of our stuff is based around enchantments instead of, say, instants and such. Now we can go down here to 2 mana, which is where quite a few of our utility is. We have 2 of the talismans, which give us each of our colors. Green is actually kind of our most important color to have in the early game, so these both give green, and then Impulse also gives red, and utility, well, Unity, Talisman of Unity, also gives white. Then we also have Open the Armory, which is good card from the new set. I believe that this is this isn't Shadow. Yes, this is Shadows over Innistrad. I was about to say it's not Eldritch Moon. This was from Shadows. You search your library for an aura card, any aura card, no matter how powerful or how weak. Just an aura card for 2, and then you put it into your hand. So late game, pretty good tutor. I believe it's the only cheap tutor for auras. And we do have 1 equipment in the deck in case we need to get that as well. Moving on, we have 2 creatures at the 2-drop slot. We have Core Spirit Dancer, which is fairly important. Not the most important, but fairly important. She gets +2/+2 for each aura attached to her, so we can give her, some enchantments to her and make her a beater. But the most important part for her is whenever we cast an aura spell, we draw a card. So what can happen in the late game is we have a whole bunch of mana. We just play aura, draw a card. It happens to be another aura. We play that, and then we just keep drawing until we don't draw something that we can play. And that can lead us to drawing 3, 4. I've drawn up to 5 cards in a turn because of it. And then the other one is Generator Servant, which can actually lead to a turn 3 Url. Generator's ability lets you sacrifice him to get 2 colorless mana, and if the mana is spent on a creature spell, it gains haste. So what you can do is you can play turn 1 land, turn 2 land, Generator Servant, turn 3 third color of land, then sack Generator Servant and play Url, and you have a hasty 5/5 with hexproof on turn 3, which is pretty good. Then moving on, we do have our enchantments at 2. These are some pretty important ones as well. Flicker Form, which for 2 mana, we put it on Uril, gives him +2/+2 because of his ability. And for 4 mana, 2 and 2 white, we can exile Uril and all ores attached to him, and then at the beginning of the next instep, we return him. So, say if there's a board wipe, we just pay the 2 and 2 white, and we get Uril out of harm's way. And then at the beginning of the next instep, he comes back with everything still on him. Our next enchantment at 2 is Spirit Loop, and this is actually one that a lot of people look over. This is a very underplayed enchantment at 2. This enchants Uril, gives him +2/+2 because of his ability, and it says whenever an enchanted creature deals damage, you gain that much life. And it is important to note that this is not lifelink. This actually stacks with lifelink, so if you have an enchantment with lifelink, then you also have this. He gains double the life. So, say we have just an enchantment that gives him lifelink and just this, he'd be a 9/9 because of his ability, and then we would gain 18 life because of that, because this does stack. Then next we have Spirit Mantle, which is another 2 mana enchantment. The important part for this is it gives him protection from creatures, so it's pretty much pseudo unblockable. There's not anything that's going to be able to get in front of him. Even if your opponent has an Emrakul, a Progenitus, it doesn't matter. He gets in and he hits face. So that is it for the enchantments at 2 mana. We do have just a handful of things that are also 2 mana. Quiet Despair, which is enchantment and artifact removal. And this actually does allow for some politics to happen, because instead of just destroying the enchanted permanent, you can also just gain 2 life every turn. So yeah, if someone wants to get on your good side, you could well, they could let you Quiet Despair something of theirs and just start gaining life. And if they ever want to back out of that little friendship that you had, well, they lose whatever it is that you put Quiet Despair on. The next thing is Rampant Growth. As I keep saying, this deck has some mana problems, so we do need Rampant Growth to search the library for a basic land card and then put onto the battlefield tapped. It's slightly slow and it does only get 1, although it can get us help a color that we may be cut off of, so it's really good for that. Then we have 2 more down here, some pretty old gold cards. The final 2 things at 2 mana. Squeeze Embrace just gives him a blanket +2/+2, which would be a +4/+4. The good thing about this is, just like Rancor and Spirit Loop, if Uril somehow happens to die, we can return Squeeze Embrace back to our hands, so that we can play it on something else or on Uril again. And then the final thing is Hull Breach, which is actually a card that quite a lot of people don't know about. This one lets you destroy an artifact or an enchantment, or an artifact and an enchantment. So you can hit 2 things for 2 mana, and it could be a blowout for some decks just on Hull Breach. Now, moving on to 3 mana, this is actually where we have a majority of our things in the deck. Starting off with Commander Sphere. Once again, we're having trouble with mana, so we put in a mana rock. Same with Darksteel Ingot, another mana rock. Moving on to the creatures in here, Auramancer. We're playing a deck with enchantments, we need Auramancer. Pretty simple, gets anything back from the graveyard that's an enchantment that we need. So whether it be an aura that fell off from a dead creature, or some removal, or pretty much anything that we need that's an enchantment. Next we have Heliod's Pilgrim, which is another tutor effect. It's also a blocker, which is pretty decent. Lets you search up any aura card in your deck, and then you get to put into your hand. Moving on, Umbra Mystic, which pretty powerful. Another card that not a whole lot of people remember or play. Pretty much it gives all your auras attached to permanents you control totem armor, which says if an enchanted permanent you control would be destroyed, instead remove all damage from it and destroy an aura. Now, the great thing about Uril, or anything with this, is that if you have multiple auras on a creature, you get to choose which one gets destroyed. So yeah, really helpful to have her. I occasionally even put an aura on Umbra Mystic just so that she doesn't get easily destroyed. Next, we have Eidolon of Countless Battles. Now, he is kind of a little interesting. We can cast him for 3 mana, and he can be a creature himself. You get +1/+1 for each other creature. Well, for each creature you control, and +1/+1 for each aura you control. So he can be a 5/5 by himself, 5/5, 6/6, something pretty high. Or for 4 mana, you can cast him as an enchantment. And if the creature that he would be attached to, if it happens to die, the great thing is he falls off and becomes a creature. So, yeah, that's pretty helpful. And I don't know if that's actually a... no, it is not a bug. I'm just now reading Bestow. I didn't play with a whole lot of the Theros cards. So, yeah, he's... I would not build the deck without him. Next, we have Mesa Enchantress. This is one of the 2 Enchantress effects that we have in the deck. Actually, one of 3, much like the Core Spirit Dancer up here, 2 mana. Mesa Enchantress says whenever you cast an enchantment spell, you get to draw a card. Pretty simple. Then next we have Verduran Enchantress, which is the one of the original Enchantress cards. It says the exact same thing. Whenever you cast an enchantment, you draw a card. Then next we have Aura Gnarlid, which can't be blocked by creatures with power less than it, and it gets +1/+1 for each aura on the battlefield. So if you just have Aura Gnarlid beside Uril, he can be a 5/5 by himself because of just all the enchantments that you have on Uril. Or if you're stuck off some mana, which has happened occasionally, you can just start putting enchantments on Aura Gnarlid and get some early game beats in. Now, I did skip a few cards up here. 3 of our enchantment removal things. Banishing Light, it's Oblivion Ring by a different name. The actual Oblivion Ring, everybody knows what it does. And then Prison Term, which is pretty much Oblivion Ring, but you actually have to enchant a creature. So it's pretty much Oblivion Ring, but you can move it around to a different creature. Whenever they play a new creature, you get the ability to move it over to the next creature. So you can put this on one of their early game creatures, and as they keep playing bigger and bigger creatures, you can move it to the new threat. Then moving up to a card that I almost forgot about, Ash's Favor. For only 3 mana, you get Flying, First Strike, and Vigilance, which is pretty much all the extra keywords that you want on Uril pretty early. He would also be a 7/7 if you put Ash's Favor on him, so yeah, helps quite a bit, and it's only 3 mana. And surprisingly, not a whole lot of decks actually run Ash's Favor. So now let's move on down a little bit. We have some more 3-drops, and then we're getting into the bigger things. So right down here is where we have most of our mana ramping spells. We have the basic ones, Cultivate, which lets you get 2 basics from your deck. Kodama's Reach, which lets you get 2 more basics from your deck. Harrow, which this is actually the player's reward version of Harrow. Pretty much, you sacrifice a land, you get 2 basic lands onto the battlefield. The important part about Harrow, besides Kodama's Reach and Cultivate, is that these lands come in untapped. So, yeah, you need to pretty much sacrifice a land that you use to cast Harrow and then get 2 untapped lands. And this is actually the best mana ramp spell, and not a lot of decks use it, which is kind of a theme of this. It's probably why this deck is so cheap. Like I said, it was made for under 10 tickets. So, yeah, people need to start using Harrow. Moving on, we have Snake Umbra. It's another Umbra, which means it gives +1/+1, and it has Totem Armor. And this one's special ability is whenever the creature deals damage to an opponent, you get to draw a card, which isn't exactly that powerful, but that extra card could save you. Next, we have Scourge of the Nobilis. This is one of the cards that matters for multicolored creatures. This one is red and white. We also have the green-white one down there, Shield of the Oversoul. But let's talk about this one first. Excuse me, still a little sick. If the attached creature is white, it gets +1/+1 lifelink. If it's red, it gets +1/+1 and fire breathing. Now, the important part is Uril is both red and white, so he gets fire breathing and he gets the lifelink, which is pretty good. The other one of those colors matter is the Shield of the Oversoul, which is green-white. If the creature's green, it gets +1/+1 indestructible, and if it's white, it gets +1/+1 and flying. And once again, Uril is both of those things, so getting flying and indestructible and +4/+4 technically for only 3 mana, I'll pretty much take that all day long. Then moving on, we get Armadillo Cloak, which is pretty much the same thing as Unflinching Courage. They both give +2/+2 and trample. The important thing to note is that Unflinching Courage gives the creature lifelink, and an Armadillo Cloak once again says whenever enchanted creature deals damage, you gain that much life, which, as I stated before, stacks. So Armadillo Cloak and Unflinching Courage, if they're both on Uril, well, you gain double the life of what he dealt damage. Next, I'll talk about the only 2 equipments in the deck. The first one is Behemoth Sledge, which is essentially just another version of Armadillo Cloak and Unflinching Courage. Gives +2/+2 lifelink and trample. It's the same mana cost to cast it, although there is an equip cost of 3, and sadly, Uril doesn't get an extra +2/+2 for having Behemoth Sledge on him. So we're normally giving Behemoth Sledge to another backup creature so that we can have that creature back on defense. An artifact that we actually do give to Uril is the Mage Slayer, which for another 3 mana, this time 1 a red and a green, and an equip cost of 3. This says whenever a creature attacks, it deals damage equal to its power to defending player. Now, if this goes off, it doesn't matter what they choose to block it. This is actually done before blocks. This is on attack. He deals damage to it. So this is pretty much pseudo double strike, although it stacks with double strike. So if Uril has a double strike and he has a Mage Slayer equipped, he's technically attacking 3 times in the turn, one of those being unblockable. So yeah, definitely really good. This leads to a lot of one-hit kills, and pretty much no other artifact or equipment in the deck can say that. And pretty much, if this was an enchantment that costs 6 to cast, I'd still play it. So moving on down here to 4 mana. First off, we have Faith's Fetters. Pretty much this is in here for Planeswalkers. Whenever it enters the battlefield, you gain 4 life. Enchanted permanent. Its activate abilities can't be activated unless they're mana abilities. None of the Planeswalkers have mana abilities. So yeah, you put this on a Planeswalker, you gain 4 life, and you take care of it, and you don't have to worry about a Planeswalker. Next, we have Retether, which is a pretty broken card in the late game. It says return each aura card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Only creatures can be enchanted this way. Well, it doesn't help with Faith's Fetters, like I just said, with Planeswalkers, but after a late game of having Uril maybe killed 3 or 4 times, which can happen in super long games, you just cast Retether, and oh my god, for 4 mana, you just put 15 mana or so worth of enchantments back on Uril, and he's swinging in there for a potential one-hit kill. Next, we have potentially the most powerful enchantment aura in the deck, and this is Sage's Reverie. Whenever it enters the battlefield, you draw a card for each aura you control that's attached to a creature. So it doesn't matter if it's attached to an opponent's creature, with it being like Faith's Fetters or Suppression Bonds or Oblivion Ring or something like that, you still draw a card for that. And it gets +1/+1 for each aura you control that's attached to a creature. So he gets a whole bunch of +1/+1s, and he draws a whole bunch of cards. Both things that you really want in the late game, and they're both on one card. Next, we have Suppression Bonds, which is just another Faith's Fetters, but in this one you don't gain the 4 life. Next, we have Ajani's Chosen. There's very few extra creatures in the deck besides Uril. They really have to do something to make it in the deck, and Ajani's Chosen fulfills one of the important things that a lot of Uril decks don't have, and that's blockers. Now, Uril doesn't always have Vigilance. When he does, it's amazing, but sometimes he doesn't. You just don't draw the cards for it. And Ajani's Chosen says whenever you cast an enchantment, or whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield, actually, you get a 2/2 white cat. These tokens can be enchanted with whatever you just played, although you normally don't want to do that. These guys are just blockers. This is the second best blocking producer in the deck. Actually, it's technically the third. We're about to get to the first and second slot. But let's move on to some more enchantments. And next we have Sarah's Embrace, which gives him +2/+2, technically +4/+4, flying and vigilance. Pretty much things that you really want. Sadly, this doesn't give lifelink, but hey, having a 9/9 flying beater that has vigilance, pretty good in my book. Next, we have one of the more broken Umbras, actually. This is Bear Umbra, which gives him +2/+2, technically +4/+4, Totem Armor, which is always a plus, and it says whenever this creature attacks, untap all lands. Importantly, this is not on damage being dealt to a player, so if he attacks and he's blocked, you still get to untap your lands. It's just on attack. So, also amazing. Then the next best, actually the best mana enchantment in the deck right here, it's Elemental Resonance. And this card is just crazy. It says, at the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, add mana equal to enchanted permanent's mana cost to your mana pool. So if you put this on Uril, well, you get 5 mana at the beginning of each of your pre-combat phases. One game that I was playing, I put this on one of my friends, Eldrazi, and I was getting, it was 8? No, it was 11 mana each turn. Sadly, it doesn't let you choose a mana color. If it's an Eldrazi like it was, I get just colorless mana. If I put on Uril, then I get 2 colorless, 1 red, 1 green, 1 white. It's exactly its mana cost. So, yeah, this, just remember, you can put this on your enemy's creatures, and it will get you a whole bunch of mana. So that's why I call it the best mana producing enchantment in the deck. And not a lot of people play this either, so it's really cheap. You can find it for like 0.01 tickets or something really close to that. So next we have Gaia's Embrace, which gives him a pseudo +5/+5 and trample, but that's not really the part that's amazing about this. It's the regenerate enchanted creature. Really love that. Just in case a board wipe happens, well, we can regenerate him. Our auras might fall off, or some of them might fall off, but we still get to keep Uril, so we don't have to cast him again for even more mana next turn, so that's pretty good. Next we have Mammoth Umbra, which is the last of the Umbras in the deck. This one gives him vigilance, it has totem armor, and it gives him a pseudo +5/+5. So yeah, this is one of the worst Umbers in the deck, but still good enough to play, and it's still cheap enough to play. Then next we have our best tutor in the deck. It is 3 Dreams. For 5 mana, you get to search for 3 auras in your deck with different names, which that doesn't really matter, we're playing Commander, and you get to put them in your hand. We're about to show off what 3 what 3 auras I normally pick. But first, let's look at Totem Guide Heartbeast. Another tutor, but this one you only choose 1 aura, and he's also a solid blocker, being a 2/5. Then next we have Sigil of the Empty Throne, which is perhaps the second best token producer in the deck. It says whenever you cast an enchantment spell, put a 4/4 white angel token with flying onto the field. Now I said that Johnny's Chosen was the 3rd best. Yeah, he makes 2/2 white cats. Sigil of the Empty Throne makes 4/4 angels with flying, so they can block pretty much anything. Then let's get to the 3 best enchantments in the deck. Well, 2 of these are the best enchantments in the deck. One of them's kind of mediocre. It's still really good. Let's get to that one first. It's Epic Proportions. For 6 mana, he gets a +7/+7 and trample, which is quite a bit of damage. That is a 12/12 with trample, potentially on turn 6 or turn 5 if you have a ramp, which is pretty good. A 12/12 with hexproof and trample, yeah, I'll take that. Then the second best enchantment in the deck, Runes of the Deus. This is another one of the colors matter enchantments. This one's red and green. If it's red, which Uril definitely is, it gets +1/+1 in double strike. If it's green, which Uril definitely is, it gets +1/+1 in trample. Now trample and double strike is amazing together, and this technically gives him +4/+4. So having a 9/9 double strike trampler is pretty amazing. Even if they get a blocker, you're still going to get some commander damage in. And remember, we only have to get the 21 commander damage. It doesn't matter if they have 1,000,000 life. If they take 21 commander damage, they are still dead. And now let's get into the best enchantment in the deck. And that is Pollen Bright Wings over here. For 4 colorless, a green and a white, enchanted creature gets flying, and whenever enchanted creature deals damage to a player, that many put that many +1/+1 green sapperling creature tokens onto the battlefield. Not a lot of decks have a whole ton of flyers in Modern, so you can pretty much beat face with this. At the lowest, Uril will be a 7/7. So getting at least 7 green sapperlings on the field, that's 7 blockers. And if your opponent can't kill them all that turn, well, when Uril attacks next turn, you'll have even more. This card has won me games by itself. I was playing against a Gitrog monster deck the other day, and I landed a Pollen Bright Wings. I attacked, and he just couldn't deal with the sapperlings all game long. It took him a damnation to get rid of the sapperlings, and even with that, at that time Uril already had a totem armor on him, so he still survived, and I got more sapperlings the next turn. In pretty much any Ultron deck or Voltron deck in Commander, you need to be playing Pollen Bright Wings. This card is utterly amazing. And to finish it up for our 100th card, we're going from something really amazing to something kind of mediocre. And it's all the way here at the end because it has the highest converted mana cost of being 2x, and it deals X damage. It's Savage Twister. For red and a green X, deals X damage to each creature. This gets around anything except for indestructible, and, well, it's actually about the worst card in the deck. This is going to be cut for a land. I can guarantee it now. Yeah, that's pretty much it for this Uril deck. I know that there was a lot of cuts going through this video. That's because I've been having to stop and pretty much have a cough every 10 to 15 seconds. That's why there's been so much of the cuts. Hopefully it doesn't get too distracting. I hope to get rid of this cold soon. But yeah, for now, that's just going to be it for this video. I don't have a game recorded yet of Uril. Once I get the mana fixed in this deck, then I will hopefully get some games recorded. But I do have 2 more decks planned. They don't show up yet over here, and it's not the Darien deck. I do have 2 more, kind of a surprise for now, but one of them continues in this vein of being budget. This one, like I said, was made for a budget of 10 tickets. My ultimate goal, I would say, would be to make a deck that is 1 ticket, but because prices change hourly, that can be somewhat of a problem to make that deck. And technically the Ashling for Fun deck that I uploaded a few days ago is under a ticket, but having a real actual deck that's designed to be played normally and regularly, I'll probably have to make it 1.2 tickets or something like that. Just because the price changes. But yeah, I'm wanting a 1-ticket deck and also a 5-ticket deck. I do have the 5-ticket deck planned. I will also be showing off the first non-budget deck in this for Magic Online, because even the Tauren deck that I uploaded months ago was still a budget deck. It was I believe 15 if not 20 tickets. One of those 2, but yeah, it was a fairly budget deck, online and offline. I have a non-budget deck planned, which is still kind of budget on MTGO, but you'll see when we get to it. So that's it for this video. Remember, I'm Ryan from Blue Gaming, and as always, I'll see you guys in the next one.